Hi everybody! This Whimsy session is heavily inspired by my son. He's about a year and a half, well closer to 2 by the time y'all watch this video, and he's really into music. Actually, he's really into Daft Punk. No, seriously, he's really into Daft Punk. So you can't tell from that video clip there, but my son is listening to Daft Punk on a vinyl record. And my son's amazing, he can do a lot of things, but he doesn't quite have the skills yet to turn on the stereo, put a record on, and then, hang out and listen to it. So you can imagine when he wants to listen to Daft Punk, it can be a pretty frustrating experience. Okay, but we don't have to listen to Daft Punk on a vinyl record. There are other options. For example, we all walk around every day with these pocket computers that have Spotify or Google Music or Apple Music or whatever streaming service you want to subscribe to. And after a couple clicks, Daft Punk's playing, no problem. But again, this is another situation where my son doesn't have a lot of control over the experience. So, like any good engineer, I came up with a really complicated solution to this problem. So the basic criteria for what I was looking for was to have something that had the look and feel of a toy. So it might be something that my son's familiar with. You could imagine that I might have something that's the size of this little kid's shoebox. And the box might have a speaker and 3 buttons. And as you click on each of the buttons, a different song plays. When I first embarked on this mission to make this music box for my son, the first thing that came into my mind was a Raspberry Pi. Raspberry Pis are these special little computers that let us do anything, really, like make a magic mirror. So Raspberry Pi, I've used them before. I don't really know the electrical wiring stuff too well, but I figured if I can do stuff with a Pi, I'm halfway there. So I did a little research and I found a tutorial on raspberrypi.org on how to make a music box with a Pi and a little Python script. So now I'm all in. I can definitely do this. I can buy a Pi. I can follow a tutorial. Let's go. There's only one thing I was missing, and that was time. Despite living through this pandemic where we're not going places, leaving the house, a lot of time at home, I didn't really have a ton of free time because it turns out when you have little kids, there is not much free time. So where was I going to find this time to work on this project? Fortunately, at the beginning of the year at work, we were having a hackathon at work. So this was a perfect opportunity for me to work on this project and see, could I actually make something here? So when the hackathon came around, I pulled up the tutorial and started getting to work. The first thing I had to do was write the Python script that was going to power the interactions with the Raspberry Pi and the buttons. It was fortunately not too hard to grok. I haven't done a ton of Python ever before this project, but it wasn't too hard to follow the instructions, pull in the library, and things kind of worked. I didn't have the music files yet, but I could pull some free sounds online to make it work. And things were going well, things were working. I had 2 buttons wired up playing sounds, but there was one that just was not working, and I could not figure out what was going on. I turned to a tool that's helped me get unstuck a lot in the past, and that's pairing. So I reached out to a few coworkers and said, hey, can y'all look at this with me? Maybe you can figure this out. First thing we looked at was the Python script. Nothing, wasn't much to it. Seemed to be working fine. So we immediately rolled out the software. The next thing we wanted to look at was the board and see was there something not wired correctly. So we tried to do this over Zoom. I had my phone overhead trying to look at the board, everything's shaking. Not a good experience for anyone to pair and look at a board that way. And finally my coworker Joey, he had a good idea of just take a picture. Take a picture of your board, send it to us and we'll see if we can see what's going on. And after a few minutes, fortunately, somebody saw it. So here's my board that I had, and here's all the stuff wired up. And it's a really subtle thing. If you have done electrical wiring before with a breadboard, it'll stand out to you immediately. It did not to me. But you can see here, there's this little gap between the different parts of the board. A lot of boards, typically this ground line will run all the way up and down. Mine was split in half. I didn't realize that, so I thought I had a ground connection when I didn't. Fortunately, pairing helped me fix this problem really quickly, and I was able to keep moving with the project, and it worked.
Everything is going extremely well.
Alright, so now I have a thing that might one day become a music box that my son could use to listen to music on. But after, putting this together, working through the hackathon, I wasn't totally satisfied with the solution that I'd come up with. Like I said before, Raspberry Pis are these amazing computers that let us do so many things. And I felt like it was kind of a disadvantage for this project. Raspberry Pis have a bunch of software on them, they have internet connections, and all kinds of other stuff that I did not need, and honestly could be a liability down the road. So I went back to the internet, did more research, and I came across this board from Adafruit. And this board was exactly what I was looking for, exactly what I had in mind. It's a board that's pre-programmed to listen to inputs at different points, and once it receives input, it will play a file associated with that input. But now I was presented with a new challenge, because with Raspberry Pis, something that I was a little bit familiar with, I hadn't done a lot of Python before, but still familiar. I could figure my way through that. But with this Adafruit board, I was going into new territory. I hadn't done a ton of electrical wiring, and the board was pretty bare bones. If I wanted to wire up some connections, I would have to solder them together. So I did more and more research trying to see if this is a good idea, was this something I'm going to be able to do by myself. And I really just wanted to have someone I could just talk through this idea and see, hey, is this going to work? Fortunately, my coworker Jason, he does a lot of electrical wiring between building amps and speakers and guitar stuff. So I figured it was going to be right up his alley. So I pinged him and said, hey, can you just spend like a few minutes with me talking through this thing? Hey, thanks for jumping on this call with me.
Yeah. Any other questions about the upcoming project there? It sounds like a cool one.
Yeah, no questions. I'm excited to get working on it. All right, now that I have some questions answered, it's time to make the thing. And now it's time to see if this thing works.
Ok, momento. Uy, 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 uy. Ah, así no, ok, mire, peligroso. Ok. Ok, mire. Ok, paro. Aquí tenemos. Ok, empuje el rojo. Mire aquí, el rojo. Empuje, ok. Dígalo, aquí, rojo.